Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have a catchy title that hopefully drew you in, but it's such an interesting subject. Basically, I'm joined by Diane Kazer, who we'll talk about in a minute, but we're discussing how S.H.I.T, she says, the acronym stress, hormone imbalances, infections, and toxins are destroying your inner beauty. So for those who aren't familiar with Diane, she is a former pro soccer player turned FDN practitioner and is the founder of Chi Holistic Health Institute, the Parasite Full Moon Challenge, and the Warrior Cleanse, which is a 3-step solution to cleanse your body, heal your trauma, and ignite your purpose. She is the author of Killer Breasts and creator of the Explant Solution, which helps women to beat breast implant illness. And after overcoming autoimmune disease herself, Diane produced the Non-Toxic Beauty Summit and 11-part Dying to be Beautiful docuseries with David Icke. So in this episode, we discuss these beauty blockers and promoters, and it might be a lot deeper than you would think. So she discussed a lot of the root cause stuff that I like to talk about. She shares her health journey and struggle with breast implant illness, but also botox illness, which I didn't actually realize was a thing, but I learned a lot from that discussion. And she also shares how to embrace your natural beauty, which in the modern world with diet culture, celebrities, media, can be quite difficult. And she shares, and I relate to this as well, that the healthier you become, a lot of people tend to get into the spiritual space and they're less interested in following all of the trends and trying to live up to these unrealistic expectations, because you just realize what's actually important. So we have a few different discussions, but it's all tied very nicely together. And you'll find all of Diane's links and products and services in the episode show notes, as always. So I hope you enjoyed this episode with Diane Kazer. Hi, Diane. Welcome to the podcast. It's so good to finally have you on here.
Hey, Vivian. Great to be with you and your guests.
And I know a little bit about your journey, but I haven't yet heard the full story. So in as much detail as you want to go into, I'm sure it's a long one, but yeah, share how you got to where you are today and why you're interested in some of these areas and why you help people with things like breast implant illness, toxic beauty. Is that something I'm guessing that you experience personally?
Yeah. I would normally I'd start with referring to we just do what we do because we see what we see and what's common and what everybody else is doing around us. But I'm having a bit of I would say a vulnerable month. I know a lot of people are going through a lot of very challenging times right now, spiritual battles, if you will, of good and evil forces and, shadow and light. And it's really bubbling up to the surface. And I'm not exempt to that. So, just because you have an expert on here doesn't mean that person has become, completely immune to struggles.
Like detached from the real world.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're because you write a book on something, or I made several movies on this topic, doesn't mean that I've made it and we never experience hardship. So what I would say is that a lot of this for many of us, and for the women, the patients I work with, and I've been doing this for 12 years now as a naturopathic doctor, that when we're conditioned as a child, it determines the choices that we make as an adult, right? So I refer to the mother wound a lot, and it's not something that comes up in every conversation. So today I think it's very relevant because I'm seeing so many people going through it. There's a mother wound, there's a father wound, and what a mother wound really says is that as a child, I was not seen, acknowledged, heard, accepted, encouraged for who I am and what my unique gifts are. There's a lot of compartmentalizing. There's a lot of narcissism. There's a lot of, ego-based attachments, projections that our parents place on us. And I always say that there's the greatest shame that any child will face is the unmet lives of the parents. So then those parents project those expectations, perfectionism on the child. And this is epidemic now. This has become widespread. This is as part of what I believe I experienced. And when we're kids, we see the world and we see everything around us and go, okay, well, that must be normal. And as a kid, for me, it was mother wound was my mother didn't really know how to give me affection. And I think that maybe some of your listeners can hear it too, that well, I didn't get that encouragement from my mother. I didn't get that, hey, you're amazing and you're beautiful and you're a light just the way that you are. You don't need to amend anything. What most of us saw is our mothers putting masks on, is our mothers enabling, playing small, not stepping into their greatness, infuriating ourselves, pedestalizing to the patriarchy. And I'm not here to be a feminazi or anything, but I'm just saying this is what's been going on for a very long time in religion and culture. And so we're just now starting to break out of that. And what we see is this role that women are supposed to play in all of these different elements of our culture. And then we see, okay, well, there's the media and there's Barbie. I mean, my book, my Killer Breast book, I start with the whole concept of when I was a kid, I'd break Barbie parts, break her legs off, I'd break her arms off. I didn't know what I was doing. But later on in life, I realized that perhaps there was this dark spell being cast on us that we had to fit this mold of 36, 24, 36, and double D breasts and moving our hips. And I mean, we get the idea. We're taught at a young age to idealize this mold, and it plants these tethers into our mind of toxic treatments and procedures that we need to do in order to be accepted, to be loved, to be asked to be married, to be the princess that we see on Disney. I could go on and on and on. I mean, you get the idea. So that's
every woman listening is like nodding their head.
Yeah. It's a prison. It's a plastic beauty perfectionism prison. And I'm in a mission to help women get out of it, because I'm still in a mission to get out of my own.
Wow. And what happened with your own health then? So did you go down that path of breast implants and trying to fit this like ideal stereotype?
Yeah. What's interesting is that I think we all go on this different journey where we get fractionated on who we think we're supposed to be and who we really want to be. And it becomes this dark night of the soul, or many of them. It could be many dark nights of our soul. That's a way that we, I believe, throw ourselves off of the proverbial fence, the Humpty Dumpty, so to speak. We hurl ourselves off of this wall and shatter ourselves into millions of pieces and look around and go, who cut me? Who hurt me? Who pushed me off this wall? And really it's ourselves, because we're sick and tired of projecting this perfectionism that we need to be at this pedestal. And we have to put masks on, and we have to be high up here above everything else. And it's this ego compete and compare thing. So I believe I threw myself off of that wall and gave myself away into, I went from being a professional soccer player, being a badass and traveling the world and playing pro soccer in Germany, and just my masculine side, being this masculine external, got to fit in and got to exceed and got to excel and perform. And then I became a bikini competitor, and that's where it all went down south. But of course I found my light that way. And so this is where we see a lot of Instagram is a lot of, and it's been happening for a long time. Look at the bodybuilding industry. Look at these big, beautiful, I don't think they're beautiful, but perky breasts, double D, working out 2 hours a day at the gym, eating 6 meals a day, copious amounts of artificial supplements that were, made by sick cows and in these labs with artificial ingredients and binders and anything to pump up to be more buff and toned, while having this chiseled body to perform on stage to get more likes. That has only progressed. And so I got breast implants in order to compete. And from the moment I got them, my soul was sick. And that's when I actually started losing on stage. I went from earning the national competitor, competing in California State, and then went down into a dark depression when I got 11th place. And that's when I started really looking into who am I? if I'm not this performer, if I'm not getting first place on stage, if I'm not getting acknowledgments or sponsorships, what am I? And then I got really sick with breast implant illness. Then I went into Botox and got Botox illness, and then almost died, and made a movie called Dying to Be Beautiful, because that was the trajectory that I was on in order to compete and stand out, but yet fit in at the same time. And it's really a soul's journey back to our heart. But in the meantime, it doesn't look very pretty.
Oh, yeah. I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Firstly, with the implant illness, do you feel like if you hadn't been doing the competing and kind of wrecking your metabolism and your hormones in that process, you would have been fine? Like, are there some people out there who are perfectly healthy with breast implants?
Great question. First of all, I don't see perfectly healthy anywhere.
Yeah, true.
So we're living in the most toxic time that we know in history. 85,000 toxins, different in every country, of course, but just because, the UK may not make as many chemicals or toxins doesn't mean that you guys are not experiencing and
we can order some of the products from the US, like these beauty skincare products.
Sure, not just that, but what I'm referring to is the winds and the ocean,
right, yeah.
And geography and geology, and we're winds are blowing, there's hurricanes, our oceans are sick, and I'm not here to be negative. I'm just here to say that breast implants are just part of the journey for why women get sick. But we're living in a very toxic environment. So we have women getting very sick from things other than just breast implants. So what I see is that the women that come to me, they're like, can I keep my breast implants? Can you look at my labs and can I keep these implants? Can I still be healthy? And I look at their labs and I go, well, that's really up to you. I'll tell you right now what is in these breast implants. I'll tell you what I've seen. You can read my book. You can see these hamburger looking capsule shells that your body creates around these implants to protect you from the toxicity that these things are, and the identification of your body going, whoa, mama, that's not normal DNA. That's not native. God did not make us with these. So I'm going to protect you, says the immune system. And the immune system builds these hamburger looking like capsules around them so that your body can be protected from the potentiality and the likelihood, which every breast implant does. They all bleed, they all rupture, they all somehow transfer these toxins. It's just a matter of time, and how slow it happens depends on your body. But most women don't get their breast implants replaced every 10 years, as is instructed. And most women also don't know that no breast implant manufacturer has actually ever done a full long-term study to prove that these things are safe. Never in the history of breast implants. In fact, every breast implant manufacturer is in violation of their pre-market approvals. Every single one. And they're all filled with saline or silicone, 30 plus toxins like heavy metals and polymers and these preservatives and fillers that end up transferring themselves all throughout the body, radioactive elements. And they're carcinogens, they're cancer causing, they're neurotoxins. So mine didn't rupture, so I must be fine. My breasts feel fine, so that my breast implants must be fine and intact. But I'll tell you right now, what I see coming out of women's bodies, their boogers, their butts, and their stool, is silicone looking materials that are not stool.
Really?
So, yep. And it was happening with me. I put all of it in my book. So every woman, these capsules is evidence of an autoimmune reaction to a foreign object that is non-self. So by definition, it's my belief that every single woman who gets breast implants has some kind of an autoimmune reaction that creates some kind of an immune system issue, some gut dysfunction. Our immune system lives in the gut. So I see constantly that there are a lot of gut dysbiosis, lots of bad gut bugs and leaky gut. So it's just a matter of time. And the thing is that I like to impress upon women too, is that you can still have beautiful breasts without breast implants. And that's what my book and my movement's all about.
And obviously, if you already know you're prone to autoimmune, if you've got a diagnosis or a strong family history of psoriasis or celiac disease, rheumatoid arthritis, we'd have to think of like this toxic bucket. I don't know if you like give the same analogy, but it's already going to be pretty full up because you've got the genetic predisposition. Plus, we live in such a toxic world, so no wonder that it's happening faster and faster these days, that people are getting sicker. Plus, if they're also doing things like the botox and fillers and using conventional skincare and makeup products, then it's just a recipe for disaster, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's also, so I do a lot of these interviews and talk about a wide spectrum of things that make us sick, and I always say that there's 4 things that make us feel like shit. There's shit is what makes us feel like shit. And that's stress, hormone imbalance, infections, and toxicity. So I hear the psychology of a lot of women start to go, well, I don't have breast implants. I eat organic food. I work out. So I'm fine. And then they forget about Botox. They forget about fillers. They forget about, these cosmetics, these personal care products, these perfumes, these, the things that we use to clean our household items and detergents and mold. We're literally surrounded by these things. And again, not to scare anybody, but just because you don't have breast implants doesn't mean that you're not practicing toxic beauty in some way. And the biggest sign that we are in some way toxic is in our own mind, believing that we're not whole, beautiful, and perfect the way that we are. And that's 96%. I did an event in 2019 that was called the Non-Toxic Beauty Summit, and it was attended by over 35,000 people. And I had over 25 guest speakers. And what I found in that is that it was very daunting. The statistic is that 96% of women did not think that they were beautiful.
That's so sad.
That's 96%. It's like looking at a flower and going, that's ugly. That needs to be, cut, taped back together, and artificially dyed. It needs to have something next to it to complement it. It needs something to be sprayed on it so it's held in this perfect plastic way. It's a rejection of God. It's really a rejection of God's innate intelligence, wisdom in creating us. And it's a rejection of self. It's a betrayal of self. It's abandon of self. And as long as that mindset prevails, then we'll keep making toxic choices from that toxic level of thinking, right? And I also found that approximately half of the women that I interviewed that were holistic beauty experts and estheticians, I was asking them, what are the things that you're using in your clinic for non-toxic beauty procedures and recommendations and products? And they're like, oh, we use Botox. And I went, wait, hold on. So you can imagine, Vivian, I don't hold back.
Yes, I would love to have watched that scene go down.
Yeah, right. Because I'm kind of like, it's just, I wear my emotions and my thoughts on my face, my sleeve, and I'm like, wait, hold on.
They must be like, it's this natural bacteria botulism. It comes from nature.
Yeah. Well, that's what people are programmed. So it's not all their fault, right? We can't do better unless we know better, unless the truth is truly illuminated, right? So that's what I've been doing with this movement, is that we're programmed by Western medicine that it's just bacteria. It's naturally occurring. Sure, it's naturally occurring, but so too is heroin. But does that mean that you go, snort it because it's natural? We have to be careful with the slippery slope of the definition of natural. Doesn't mean it's good for you. It just means that maybe that it's, natural. Maybe it's not synthetic, but not most of the time now, this natural stuff is also an ambiguous gray area. So I found that a lot of these women were not only using Botox and fillers on their face, but they were also recommending it to patients. And I thought, wait, we have a lot of work to do here. Then I found out through my research that Botox, botulinum, it is actually a bacteria that was used to kill several, thousands of members in the troops in the Gulf War, created Gulf War syndrome, is the most toxic substance known to man and women, and travels from its point of injection site to other organs and areas of the body and paralyzes it. So if you can imagine, you're looking to freeze your wrinkles, but now imagine that if you look at the black box warning of Botox, it does say it travels from the injection site. It will move to your heart and paralyze your heart. It will move to your kidneys and paralyze your kidneys. It will move to your colon and paralyze your colon. It will move to your lungs and paralyze your lungs such that now you can't breathe. And I'm not saying that this is going to be as the case with everybody, but it's a toxin bucket thing. Like you said, Vivian, it starts to accumulate. And we've now been seeing several deaths, lots of autoimmune disease, lots of suicide. I've seen it all behind the scenes of people who have extreme reactions to these things. And just because you don't have a reaction now doesn't mean that it's not accumulating in your body. It's a ticking time bomb of accumulated toxins. And these are things that are not taught to the injectors. The injectors are taught that it stays right in the point of injection site and does not move.
And that's why people, yeah, that's why people go for it. Another one is the fillers. They say, oh, it's just hyaluronic acid. It's what our body produces on its own. But it's not just that in there, is it? I don't know the exact ingredients list, but it's like with medication. When people go on the birth control pill, they don't get told the whole list of potential side effects. And that is another one that's like a huge laundry list of different problems that you can run into. So if only the nurses or practitioners who are injecting these things into our faces told us, I'm sure that a lot of people would be put off by that.
Yeah, and that's the hard part there, is that what wins?
It's this huge money-making thing now. It's like just on the increase, isn't it?
Yeah, it's logic isn't winning right now. Emotions are. And what's the emotion? What is the deepest emotion that is programmed into us that gets us to want to purchase these literal war poisons? I mean, they are literally war poisons. They're used to kill people in war. How they end up in our face and how we're not questioning this baffles me. It's a level of cognitive dissonance that we need to wake up from. And most people will not wake up until they have been severely injured by these poisons. And then they may look back and go, I'm not going to do that again. And it's okay. Everybody's path and journey is different. But for the people who want to hear what I'm saying and what we're talking about here, and thank you, Vivian, for making this an important topic, is that there are other ways that you can build your beauty naturally without these war poisons, because over time you actually look more ugly and old by using these things. And that is evident all over Hollywood. I mean, look at these people who've been using these fillers.
They all looking the same, don't they?
They look the same, and they look frozen, and they look massively filled up like a circus act. And I'm not going to hold back from how I coined a term called beauty dysmorphia. People literally cannot see how filled up these fillers are accumulating. These fillers, they don't leave the body in many cases. They say that they do over 12 months, but they don't. And they've been doing MRIs. There's an Australian doctor who's been, really whistleblowing this and has done work with doctors to show MRIs where the fillers that were injected here and maybe in the cheeks travel to other parts of the body, and they end up causing other mass growth. And then they end up using, the hyaluronidase enzyme to break it down. And that hyaluronidase enzyme breaks not just the fillers down, but it also breaks down other parts of the body like connective tissue, muscle, bones. And then they get deflated in these areas, and many people are getting very injured. None of this stuff is approved either, Vivian. Not one filler has been approved and followed for long-term use and safety. Not one. And they all contain these very toxic ingredients that are unknown to the body. We don't know if they're the ones that are the more permanent ones. A lot of people are going to these parties and having injections done, and they're getting botched. They're getting massively botched. And they're wondering, why didn't I know about this? It's because there's not enough people talking about it. But the deepest issue here is not logic in what we're saying. It's the deepest issue is the lack of emotional self-love. It's self-love deficit disorder. And we all have been programmed to believe it because it's very profitable for the industry.
And how do we start to work on that? And would you say that as you get physically healthier, so as you start to reduce your toxic load and eat more organic and be mindful of mold and stress and all of those things that can block our beauty, as you call them. Do you feel like we just become less inclined to think that way as we get healthier? Like our brain is more clear? Because I think I've definitely felt that way over time. Like I've never really, I've been on my health journey for a long time. In my late teens, early 20s, kind of the time where a lot of people start to get into all of that stuff. And I've just really like gone the other way. But I think it's because I've been focusing on my physical body and trying to regain my health. And I know now that what you put on your skin, what you feed your body with, it all makes a massive difference. So I'm just wondering, as someone gets healthier physically, does the mindset and the thoughts surrounding beauty and body image, does that improve?
Good question. It's always multifactorial, right? Like I always say, it's the shit. It's the stress of emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, whatever imbalances that we're experiencing there. It's the also transgenerational trauma. Our ancestors before us, that how did they define beauty? I believe all of that lives deep within our hearts and our cells. And I think that the more that we do detox our body and detox our mind, the more that we can get into the true innate wisdom and intelligence. I know that might sound fluffy and woo-woo for everybody right now. And it does, until you really start to unravel all of this. I'm on a journey just like you. I'm on a journey just like everybody else. I post on Instagram. I see the pressure. I see the ads. It's a layered thing. So it's the stress of the mental tethers and it's a psychological mind trap, really. Whenever we expose ourselves to beauty ads or watching television, it's, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this term, but the MK ultra, you can look this up. I mean, there's psychological warfare out there, and they use Hollywood celebrities and models as this image of what we're supposed to look like. The more that we idealize them, pedestalize them, follow them, and project this god or goddess-like image onto them, the more that we are continuing to stay enslaved to, I am not beautiful the way that I am. And if I think our brains also it's addicted is a slippery slope to say, Vivian. I think it's just conditioned. We get conditioned chemically to these chemicals, the dopamine deficiency, the serotonin deficiencies. We get addicted to, or just used to, cortisol, adrenaline rush of the abandonment of not embracing ourselves, of who we are. And it becomes our normal. And it becomes what we are, what we seek out more of, because it's familiar, right? It's normal. So I would say the first thing is question what you consume of the mind, right? So who are the people that you surround yourself with? I mean, what are your friends doing? Are they doing Botox parties? Or do they have breast implants? Are they constantly craving attention and never really able to be present where they are and sit with you and connect from a heart level and an eye and a soul level? Most of these people are putting masks on. And so who are you surrounding yourself by? That's a big one. Look at your mother, how you were conditioned to be raised. Question that. Heal your mother wound. That's a big one. What are you consuming? What are you following on social media? What are you consuming on television, movies? I don't watch any of those things. I haven't watched movies and TV shows for 12 years. So I believe that's a big part of because that conditions your mind. They put images in your mind, and that's what you go crave. So that's the biggest part of this. It's the Instagram. There's like a movie you guys can go watch. I think it's on Netflix. It's like the Instagram butt likes. I can't remember. Well, yeah, we can put in the link below.
I'll find it.
Yeah. And you can see like these women who are these fake butts. Everything is fat transfer. Everything is BBLs. And these women are doing this just because they need to compete. So that is your ego needing to compete and to compare. We have a lot of work to do there, and a lot of work to do with our inner child Because every time you're making any choice of toxic beauty, you're essentially spraying your beautiful inner child in the face and saying, you are ugly.
And if
You are
there is
not.
anyone who is a parent listening, obviously we want to be the role model and do that
Yes.
work ourselves. But is there anything else? Because I'm guessing if someone has a teenage daughter right now and they're listening, they're not just going to be able to like take their phones off them, stop them from going on Instagram. So is there anything else that they could do?
Yeah,
To help them?
it's so tough. And this is where I'm gonna admit, of course, I'm not a parent, so I'm not experienced as a parent. I can be empathetic as a leader to many of my patients who are parents, right? There is a massive pressure to belong to community, and that's what social media is. All I can say is if I were a parent, I know it's not a possibility for everybody, but I would homeschool. I would take them away from what I believe is the demonic matrix of social media constructs that are stealing you. And I believe this is the child trafficking. This is the kidnapping. This is the robbing of innocence of your children. And I can't say it any other way. I just can't. It's, is there a middle ground? Maybe, but it's a very slippery slope. And if you can be, this is the hard thing, is I see so many parents who are beautiful and pure and they go to church, but their kids are still getting hijacked into this matrix that is programming their minds constantly with these hashtags and these influencers and the constant advertising to go buy these toxic beauty things. I mean, there is another industry that, of course, is beautifully blossoming with natural beauty and non-toxic beauty. But it still can be focused on, these, let's overlay a polished look, right? Like a filter. And I have that temptation too. I'm like, oh, I got wrinkles under my eyes because when I did Botox, I had such bad reactions that I now have wrinkles under my eyes that I didn't before because I was itching so badly until I bled for 6 months. And it felt like there was things crawling under my skin and I was constantly being attacked and I was tormented. And I never want anybody to feel this. So those are the things that I see now. And I go, I don't think that there is a medium with this social media. I think that parents, you can be a good example. You could be the best example in the world, but then you have this demonic force that's pulling your kids into a toxic tunnel of tyranny and toxic beauty. And this is getting back to God's place, is getting back to nature and the imperfections of ourself and the parents. And if you're a parent out there, if you have breast implants, if you're using toxic beauty, if you're using a lot of makeup on your face to, I wouldn't say, if you're illuminating your features, yes, let's have some fun. But if you're hiding out of shame, you are spiritually transferring that belief system to your child. They're watching everything that you do. So it does start with you. And I believe that we are at a tipping point now. I believe we are beyond the tipping point. So yeah, that's where I stand right now, Vivian. There's other ways to build your beauty too, and we can get into that as well.
Definitely. And they might, the children, especially young girls, might not like you in the moment if you start to bring up some of this stuff, and maybe like more careful what movies they're watching when they're in your care, but they will probably like appreciate it and love you for it in the long run, like having that example.
Yeah, I hope to plant seeds here. And I'm also not here to make friends. I'm here to help you be a better friend for yourself. And a lot of people, when they hear me talk, they're like, I had no idea that the symptoms I was experiencing could have been from breast implants, could have been from Botox, could have even been just from, using toxic makeup that, the average woman puts on 5 pounds of lead on her lips every year because of the toxic makeup that 95% of lipsticks contain lead. And, lead is a terrible toxin that ends up, accumulating in our brains and our bones. And then we wonder why we feel so crappy and we go to the doctor and then, of course, Western medicine, which has, of course, duplicated itself all around the world, says, well, let's run a blood test and we'll figure out what's going on with you. No, you're not. There's no root cause analysis in blood testing. It might show deficiency in a certain hormone or, maybe a vitamin, and they'll give you the deficiency for that. But no one is asking the question in Western medicine, why are you deficient? Which is in the soil. And that's in your soul. That's in your gut. That's in what is blocking you from having, these vitamins and nutrients that you need. Sure, it's an organic diet that can help. Sure, drinking distilled water and adding minerals back, which is my favorite type of water. Not drinking out of plastic. All of those things can help. And I have hundreds of things that I'll give to your audience, as far as the checklist that you guys can look at. But the bigger things are this. The reason why our beauty is diminishing so quickly, we're aging quickly, our immune system is struggling, our energy is depleting. I always say it's broken brain, weight gain, energy drain, and body pain. You'll end up on the symptom train, and it's because of the shit I talked about earlier, but specifically toxins. And those toxins will block the cell wall door where your good stuff gets in. So you can take all of the vitamins and nutrients and hormones and minerals, but as long as your body is toxic, those good things can't get in and activate and illuminate your naturally produced beauty, energy, vitality, and immunity. 90% of our energy comes from ATP production, which is cellular mitochondria, right? And 88% of the population is metabolically inflexible, which means their cells are extremely inflamed and unhealthy, which means good stuff can't get in. That's 9 out of 10 people, right? Blood sugar dysregulation, and everybody's tired. So then what happens when we're tired? We look tired, right? Then we got bags under our eyes and things are just like they're sagging and our skin sagging. We're like, oh, just take some collagen. The logic in what I'm hoping to bring to you and everybody listening here is it's not just about taking a lot more and spending more on all of these supplements and more collagen and more injections and more fillers and more, beauty treatments and more medical devices. It's less of the things that are draining your beauty and your energy. So if you have more energy, then you look more beautiful and you have more light and you have more clarity and you have more confidence and you sleep better and you get your beauty rest, right? So if we could actually heal your roots at the root level, which is not blood testing. It's looking at the toxins in your body. It's looking at infections that are literally eating your nutrients, like parasites specifically eat your iron. And when parasites eat your iron, well, no wonder why you have hair loss. No wonder why you have hormonal imbalances, right? No wonder why you're exhausted. So we got to get rid of those parasites. And if you have a pulse, you have parasites. So this has become an epidemic as well. So if we get rid of the toxins, if we get rid of the parasites, your body's like, thank God, now all the bad shit's out of the way. So I can build my own beauty, energy, and immunity. And you could look at yourself in the mirror and go, whoa, I didn't need all that toxic crap. I just needed to undo the things that were blocking me from building my own and just get out of our own body's way and really empower and ignite what God gave us inside, which is the ability to heal.
And my biggest symptom, I had mold illness, I had Lyme, so I had 1,000,001 different symptoms, but the most annoying one for me was my skin with acne. I had severe brain fog, I had seizures at one point, but to me the acne was the one thing that I hated the most. It was the most stubborn. And yeah, for me, the Parasite cleanse and detoxing, instead of trying to find the next supplement, the next cream, it was removing the toxin that just let my skin shine and clear with minimal effort, actually topically. I'm probably on the least topical products I've ever been on, and my skin is the best. And I remember my brother was actually doing a Parasite cleanse I think last year, and he came to my apartment one day and his skin was absolutely glowing, and he didn't really have any skin issues to begin with, but he just looked like airbrushed, like flawless. His skin was like radiant, and he looked like he was tanned, and it was just a Parasite cleanse. Like a few weeks into that, he had like the most perfect skin ever. He obviously felt better in so many other ways too.
That is another thing is I was just like you, Vivian. I had cystic acne when I was 17, 18. I tried the birth control. I got gained like 15 pounds and I was super hormonal and had terrible periods, and birth control is so toxic. Talk
I was
about
going to
like
ask the connection, because I know that hormones is one of the beauty blockers. So I was going to ask how the birth control pill also affects maybe our perceptions on beauty, and obviously affects our mate selection, it's showing now. So yeah, it definitely influences our mental health. But yeah, what is the hormone connection with our beauty?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say hormones are not the root cause. They're the reaction to the root cause, right? So hormonal imbalances are the symptom, not the issue. So you can't fix a symptom with a solution that doesn't address the root cause, unless you want to be on the toxic treadmill of treatments for the rest of your life and take tons more pills and wonder why the things that you're trying and doing and all the doctor visits and all the prescriptions and all the labs are not getting you where you want to be. Like, you might feel better, but you're not going to get all the way there. And I mean, what is all the way? I mean, that's another hard thing too, is
never
like,
ending.
it's never ending. And that's the other thing to accept, is that you don't just arrive one day and you're like, okay, I'm healthy. That's it. I'm done. No, this is a lifestyle. It's ABC. It's always be cleansing. We're living in, like I said, a very stressful time and a very toxic time. So it's knowing about how to maintain that and how to reduce your toxic burden, your stress burden, maintain a life where you're doing quarterly parasite cleanses. And these are the things that I teach, so that it doesn't take you over. And it's not complicated. It just is new, right? So that's what I like to help people, is have these levels of maintenance so they don't have to keep going to the doctor and getting more birth control. So birth control is, I believe it is truly a, in the next, by 2037, it's said to be that we're said to be infertile as a species. So birth control has become a depopulation device. So too have all of these toxins. Atrazine is another one of them that converts male frogs to female frogs. And I'm now seeing this in every urinary analysis I run on patients all around the world. Same thing with glyphosate.
What do we find atrazine in?
Water specifically, mostly water. So I say drink distilled water. You can go to my podcast and listen to my cleansehealignite.com and listen to several different episodes. I talk about these things, and the things that you guys might hear like, whoa, that's new to me, but it's really simple when you just apply it. It's just, one little thing at a time, and it covers a lot of ground. People think that, purify their water, with Britas and the Pures and, Berkeys, and it doesn't all the way get rid of these radioactive elements, and especially small nanoparticles like prescriptions like birth control. Birth control is tiny, and we can't filter that out at the utility level. So you might see a water report say, oh, it's clean from all these things that are generally recognized as safe. But if you go to EWG in America anyway, ewg.org/tapwater, put your zip code in, you can see just how many toxins that are in your water. And they're not filtering it out for you, but they're not going to show you that birth control's in the water. Neither is benzodiazepines and all these mood altering medications that can't get filtered out because they're so tiny. So we're drinking all of these things in our water. Our body's 70% water. We're eating the foods that are, if we're thinking about farms and organic, they're not using distilled and purified water to water the plants. It's the same toxic water, and the same toxic air is landing on these plants. And then we have animals that we eat that are eating, these vegetables that are all contaminated. So I make it practical when I talk that I believe everybody every day needs to be on 4 different things. One thing is a binder of sorts, one that has like fulvic and humic acid that actually gives you minerals, because hormones are made of minerals, and the majority of the population is extremely deficient in minerals, because these toxins, like I mentioned, they will prevent minerals from going into the cells and doing their job. So we've got to get the toxins out so the minerals can get in, but you also got to remineralize. So I recommend having some kind of a binder that binds the toxins and then contributes healthy minerals. It's a dual action. Activated charcoal is not going to do it. It doesn't add minerals back. The zeolites are great. Fulvic humic acid's great. I recommend a company called Cellcore, and that's the supplements I use in the Parasite Full Moon Challenge, and I'll give you guys an invitation to that if you want to join. But it takes the bad stuff out and adds good stuff back in. That's a good binder. A lot of them are not that way. So, people will do things like I mentioned, the activated charcoal, and they think, oh, that's a binder and I'm good. But actually it strips your body of minerals. So that's when they describe
it as like a dead binder, whereas the the like biotoxin binder or whatever is like a living live, and it's actually going to
Yeah.
heal you at the same time.
Exactly. And these minerals are what builds your beauty, energy, immunity as well. So it's multifactorial. You don't have to take 5 different things for your beauty building, 5 different things for your energy, 5 different things for your immune system, 5 different, like, and all of a sudden you're like, I have 30 supplements and I don't know which one I'm supposed to take. So
And that's not very
have a
natural,
binder.
is it? We want to
No.
do as minimal things as possible.
Exactly. So getting back to basics and simple and the deepest roots where you heal your gut, then you can heal everything at the same time. You don't have to chase all these different symptoms and lab test deficiencies and, blood tests and doctor to doctor hopping. It can be very simple. So bringing it back to holistic and basic is what I'm all about. So, a binder of some sort, and then having something that activates cellular and energy, which was like ATP production, mitochondria. So that's another one that I recommend. A third one that I recommend is something to support drainage, making sure that your body's able to take the trash out. Most people are constipated these days. Most people aren't sweating these days. 75% of the population is overweight or obese. This means that we're filled with toxins. It doesn't mean we're just overweight randomly. It means that your body is holding on to and hoarding toxins that are making you sick and causing you to suffer and have sickness of all different kinds. So we've got to make sure that if you are asking toxins to leave, they have the open exit doors to leave, right? So that's another one, is supporting your kidneys, your liver, your bile flow. With women, 75% of women over the age of 40 have stagnant bile flow. That's a pretty significant number, which means that toxins are stuck, infections are stuck, Epstein-Barr is stuck, parasites are stuck. You can't get rid of these things. You can't just take an antiviral if your bile flow is stagnant and can't, exit these things out of your body. So that's the third thing I recommend, is something daily to support drainage. And then the last one would be, making sure that you are supporting the body with just some of the basics that it might need, like the B vitamins, the multi, because we are our food is absolutely deficient in nutrients. And the ebook that you guys will get for the free module I'm going to give you will help you see that, how our foods just are so deficient these days with the minerals and the vitamins and nutrients that we used to have. It takes like 5 oranges to get the same nutrient value of 1 orange in like the 1950s. And I could say the same thing for broccoli and all these different foods that we used to say food is medicine, but not anymore. And it's unfortunate.
And it is true that our bodies can detox themselves, but that is in like a very controlled setting. It's not in the real world where we're bombarded by these 85,000 different toxins. So we do need to give our bodies extra support with the liver support, gallbladder support. And I bet that statistic that you had with the women with the gallbladder issues, I can bet money that most of them had been on the birth control pill at some point.
Yes, absolutely. I forgot to mention that. So, birth control. It's kind of like if you've been on birth control, but didn't focus on really optimizing and rebalancing your hormones after, then they haven't bounced back on their own. They don't just bounce back. Same thing with breast implants. You get breast implants out and there's work we've got to do to detox, because a lot of these toxins end up in your lymphatic system. They end up stagnant. And they did a study on silicone specifically, and just like plastic, BPA that I see on everybody's blood tests now, or urine tests now, everybody has BPA plastic, no matter if you're like, I don't drink out of plastic. We all buy food that's contained in plastic, right? So BPA is a xenoestrogen. It blocks your own estrogen from getting in. It causes cancer. We wonder why we have cancer. There's no race for the cure. There's no cure. There's never going to be a cure. They're not going to save you. We save ourselves by detoxing our body and reducing what we're exposed to. But just like BPA plastic, which takes thousands of years to biodegrade, and that's without effort, just that's how long it takes. And look at the Texas size, probably bigger than that now, plastic landfill in the middle of the Pacific Rim Ocean. I say that's Mother Earth. That's her breast implants. She's got just, it's not going anywhere. Animals are absorbing it, killing the coral, killing the turtles. But it's killing us. And that's why even now when you're consuming salt, like sea salt, all of it has high levels of BPA in it, because it's everywhere. So we all need to be detoxing, because nothing is pure anymore. And silicone is just like BPA. It takes hundreds of years to degrade. It's inert, which means it doesn't just break down on its own. So when you get your implants out, you've also got to do some work to go back in and irrigate your body, pull the toxins out from where they've been stored in your brain, your organs, your tissues. I see a lot of women getting more sick even after explant because they don't detox after. And then with did you do, I don't think you said you did Accutane. Did you do, Vivian?
No.
You've heard of it though, right?
Yeah. I stayed away from that. I think I just knew
Well,
intuitively that it was going to make things a whole lot worse.
you dodged a bullet, sister. I didn't. I took
But
2
I did the
rounds of
birth
it.
control, and that 2
Okay.
years of that messed me up. So
Right?
I wasn't going
Right?
to risk it.
Yeah, that's smart. I did like 8 years of Depo-Provera shots, which is progesterone injections. I didn't have a period for 8 years, and I thought that was really cool, but I definitely screwed up my hormones. And, you know, there's things we can still do to bounce back. So there's hope, you guys, but just, it takes some effort. We can't just, your body won't just bounce back. We got to give it some extra love. So I did Accutane twice. Didn't realize until 2 years ago that, and I did for my cystic acne. I tried everything before that, and I was 18. Nothing worked all the way anyway. All the doxycycline, tetracycline, the topicals, the pills. And, Accutane worked. But then I found out later on that Accutane is actually chemo that they use on pancreatic cancer patients. It is one of the most toxic medications that there are. There's a reason why there's another black box warning on that, many different lawsuits, and people who take it end up extremely sick for a long period. And I'm one of them. So talk about having a poor immune function, autoimmune disease propensity, and, your body peels from the inside out. It's really difficult to bring yourself back from that. And so I want people to know that, because doctors are microdose prescribing Accutane now. And I'll tell you right now, the root cause of Accutane, or I'm sorry, acne. It's the shit, but it is in fact parasites that create cysts, like pockets where a lot of these things are stored. Like parasites hoard heavy metals, mold, which release mycotoxins. Parasites hold on to bacteria, viruses, funguses, Lyme, radioactive elements, forever chemicals. They are literally the hoarders of all of these things, and they end up creating pockets of cysts and fibroids, fibrocystic breasts, fibrocystic acne, cystic acne. When we get rid of that, and I wish I knew that, we can get rid of the true source of why we have all of these, even cancers too. If you look at this page that I'll share with you guys in your audience, a big thing what we're finding now is a big cause of cancer is parasites, because they are the carriers of all of these toxic waste products, and they mutate our genes. And it's just, I can go on and on and on and on, but it's a nightmare when we think that, okay, we're going to fix this one problem with the drug, when really we're being gaslit and taught to look over there, when really the problem is over here and we have the power to heal. But that's not profitable. However, if you take matters in your own hand, this can all come back, and this is how we heal together.
That's why I felt so good after a parasite cleanse. After years of mold exposure and toxins, and that's why I, without any focus on it, I lost 40 pounds of weight. So I was just overweight. I couldn't lose it. It wouldn't budge. And I'm eating pretty much, I have pictures before and after on my Instagram for a visual, but I look like a different person. And everyone's like, what diet did you do? What exercise regime are you on? And it was just detoxing. And the weight just naturally shed without me like hyper focusing on it. I just say, as you get healthier and your body feels safe and you're detoxing properly, the weight will just normalize on its own a lot of the time.
That's it. You guys, it's not hard. It's just different. And I know we all want to stay like in our, here's what's mainstream, and what we hear is mainstream must be fine because everybody's doing it and they're alive and they're not dead, which means it's probably safe and fine. Not necessarily, because I believe that, at least 75% of the population is a walking dead. We got our heads down. We're not connected to our hearts. We're numbing out. We're slathering toxins all over our bodies. We've got to change this, and it's gotta change now. And the natural beauty and true energy and healing is trending again. I promise you, it's just not mainstream because they're burying the truth. But there's people like Vivian who have shows like this. And then there's me talking about this. This is the path back, to true beauty. It really is. And I promise you, even years and years, I look back at my body and I look back at my face and how swollen I was and how bloated I was and how I had eczema, I had rosacea, acne, rashes all over my body. I was inflamed and all I was doing was battling inflammation. I was just like, like you said, people were like, well, what are you doing? And what are you doing to be healthy? And I'm like, well, right now I'm not. I might look healthy-ish on the outside, but I go to the gym and I just found that I was just managing inflammation. I was just maintaining it so it wasn't getting worse. While the arsonist lived inside of me, and the arsonists were the breast implants. The arsonist was truly deep down my shame that I wasn't beautiful the way I was. That people wouldn't accept me unless I shifted and cut myself open. And we all have this. That is the beauty bully within. And I was going to the gym to manage inflammation. I was 150 pounds. I couldn't budge that. And I was doing all the obsessive things. I was in the sauna all the time, doing coffee enemas constantly, castor oil packs, going to yoga, taking 15 supplements a day. I was obsessed and I was just maintaining. And I went, this is absolutely insane. And then one day I went and got a quote for butt implants. And I went $30,000 to put these in. Why is my butt not round? Why is my back flat? My back's flat because I have 5 pounds of toxic beauty breast implants, these flotation devices pulling my spine forward, rolling my shoulders forward. And I couldn't squat low because I didn't have a straight, healthy spine. So the logic kicked in and God came in and said, Diane, if you remove your breast implants, your spine's going to go straight. You could squat lower and you'll have a round butt again and you'll be proportionate. Spend $15,000 getting your breast implants out, clean out your body. Watch what'll happen. I threw out the $30,000 quote and I said, F that. I said hello to $15,000 spending on my removing my breast implants, wrote a book about it, taught women how to save $5,000 on getting insurance to cover the explant because they are the fraudulent ones that are prescribing these flotation devices that have never been approved for safety. And lost 15 pounds, lost 5 pounds of fat. Now I'm 135 pounds and I'm looking younger every single year. I look back 5 years ago and I go, who the literal hell was I?
I want to give you a round of, I don't want to deafen people with the claps, but that deserves a round of applause. That is amazing. And I'm like smiling. I have a grin, a huge grin, and I'm sure that you do as well. And this is why you're so passionate, because you've seen the light, so to speak. You had that message from God, and it's just kind of put you on your path to help other people. And I just hope, even if one person listening to this episode starts to have a small shift, and it will take time, like you said, to undo, rewire this generational even belief that we've had ingrained into us that we should look a certain way, behave a certain way. It will take time, but I hope that, yeah, it's given someone a little bit of a nudge in the other direction. You've given us so many resources, and they'll all be linked in the show notes from what you said. And I love what you said before we even started recording, is that you don't want to just give us all of this scary information with no help. I think you've given us so many different recommendations, the supplements, the options for parasite cleansing, your books, your docuseries, so many things. And yeah, I just want to thank you, practitioner to practitioner, for all that you do and spreading the word on this and being on the podcast today. But before I let you go, have you got time to answer 3 little questions?
Sure.
Fun ones. So the first one is, what's something that you're into lately? So it could be something related to the health scene, something completely random, something that you're researching.
Yeah. Catched myself for a moment. This life, this journey. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a moment where you think you made it, and then there's another moment where you realize I let myself fall again so I can catch myself. And lately, with tears in my eyes, because I'm one of you, I'm one of all of you, I am working through recovering from a pretty toxic relationship where I let myself get swooned in by narcissist. And there's this term that's being thrown around a lot, right? Lately, a lot of people are losing themselves in this self-love deficit and finding solace in another person seeing us or giving us attention, and therefore we feel alive. And that's been me the last couple of years since COVID hit. A lot of loneliness for me. I work from home, have been for 8 years. So this is my own journey. And I'm saying this, vulnerably with everybody so that you realize that you're not alone. And I talk about these things because this is a part of what we're all transcending together. So I'm working through some, childhood things, like I mentioned, my not feeling lovable, not feeling seen, doing some EMDR. I've done a lot of inner child work and shadow work, but at this depth, not so much. I lost myself in my last relationship, and it's scary when you do that and you realize that you've lost a part of yourself, and for what. So I'm really working on that codependent traps, and the thoughts and the stories and the broken beliefs that I still hold deep, deep within at this really core level. And I believe that I've thrown myself off of this wall many times, and many of us have. And this is the biggest one I've experienced myself hurtling over. So, this has become the most popular topic that I'm seeing, in the emotional development space, is that we're all rising from playing small and dimming our light. And it really is a lot of codependence. So this I'm seeing a lot of in our practice too. So
I think lockdowns, COVID, just mess so many people up. But the work that you're doing now, this is the hardest work. This is the work that makes the biggest difference at the end of the day. But it's so much easier in comparison to do another detox or take a supplement, change your diet. But this is where people notice the biggest shifts, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that, they go hand in hand, right? That's why I would say shit. This is the stress part. And I believe that the biggest cause of depression is emotional abuse that we're receiving from someone else. And it could be ourselves. It could be that inner parental voice that we inherited and we just became. And we're either rising from it or burying ourselves deeper into it. And it's some of the hardest work, but you're not alone, and doing it with asking other people for support, surrounding yourself with people who really get this stuff, and cleansing your toxins and cleansing your trauma at the same time allows it to happen faster, because a lot of people will go into trying to heal these emotions, but then have progesterone deficiency, or they'll have high levels of toxins like things like cesium cesium is in all injectables these days in vaccines, and cesium blocks our potassium. And 75% of women have thyroid disease. It's not just because of a thyroid hormone deficiency, it's because of toxicity from things like this. So when you can cleanse these toxins, and then you're also remineralizing, and you're also addressing these and working with your hormones, it becomes this beautiful symphony. And it's not linear. Like, healing is hard. It's all over the place. And it's not supposed to be a plastic Barbie looking journey. So that's my big thing right now, admittedly, is I'm learning to love myself in ways that I haven't. And it's refreshing, but it's necessary for all of us.
And it's refreshing to hear you share and be so vulnerable and such an open book with this journey that you're going on. And do you see with your patients as well, with the parasite cleanses, they start to cleanse the parasites in their life? Because I certainly do. Or they have these emotions come to the surface as their body is getting rid of the weight or the infections. They have these realizations, these epiphanies, and make these drastic life changes.
Yeah, parasites are such a big part of what hijacks our mind. Parasites can come in the form of these microscopic things, 70% of parasites you can't even see. 30% you can, 70% of prozoa, 30% might be ringworm and ropeworm and pinworm and tapeworm, and 50% of kids, at least in America, have these bugs. And this is what we pass back and forth, not viruses. We pass parasites. And that's why we get sick from the kids coming home with, but parasites can come in more than just biological form. They come in human form too. There are there people in your life sucking the life out of you, depleting you of energy, making you feel worse about yourself? This is that codependent trap I'm referring to. So as above, so below. If you have parasitic people in your life, you tend to have parasites in your body too. And I see a lot of people when they lose these parasites and they see them in the toilet, or do they just feel better and their gut gets better? Over 100 symptoms are related to parasites. Go to my parasite page and you guys will see that. Every symptom is related to parasite in some way. So when they release parasites, the mind gets clear, because when your parasites are eating your nutrients, that also includes a lot of these neurotransmitters that fuel the mind. There's one specific parasite, Toxoplasma gondii, that people who have cats, they have it. And this specific type of parasite torments the mind. It can cause kind of like a schizophrenic sort of bipolar impact in the mind. So that when people cleanse out these types of parasites, they feel clear in the mind. They feel like less brain fog. They feel less codependence, addiction. They feel more centered, clear, like they're coming back home, and parasites take a while to cleanse. I always recommend people start with a good 3 months in a row. But yeah, getting rid of these parasites also talk about your skin looking better, because they're not eating your nutrients and causing leaky gut and the birthplace of autoimmune disease. But yeah, there's parasites are such a big connection. I really do feel, Vivian, that this is a big part of it right now. The life force that gets depleted from us is this spiritual battle.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've seen people do parasite cleanses, they start coming home to their purpose. They start turning on and activating again. They start attracting the relationships that aren't sucking their life force, that are life-giving. They're in a higher vibrational frequency. They're vibrating higher. They're illuminating more beautifully. And I've seen this time and time again, that now I can say this. It's not just doing a parasite cleanse to heal your gut. It's to heal your pain, your emotional suffering. And it's been, I didn't expect this, but when I started seeing, thousands of people go through a parasite cleanse and witnessing how they're attracting the things in their life that they've been dreaming of for years, it's like, there's something here, and it's beautiful.
I think you've just reminded me to do I usually do an annual parasite cleanse, because I did like so much detoxing and gut work. I'm like, I need a little bit of a break. So I think I am going to plan my next parasite cleanse, because I want some of that extra goodness. I'm feeling great, but that's what we want to do. We don't want to wait until we're chronically sick before we do something. We want to be proactive instead of reactive. So we both practice what we preach, and we both try and stay on top of things, but sometimes life just gets in the way. We have to just
and bugs are everywhere. Like, it used to be that we could get by with once a year and parasite cleanses, but now they're everywhere. They're biological. They've been made in labs. They're a lot more prevalent now than they ever have been. So it's and they're very active during the full moon, and we're spreading these things. That's why we're so sick these days. So and look at cancer prevalence. I mean, we every quarter, I say at least twice a year, do a parasite cleanse, and you only need to do it for like 7 days.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. My second question is a little bit off topic, but still the same health stuff. What's your go-to breakfast? Just for some inspiration for the people.
Yeah, there's something that I developed called the metabolic mocha. And it's an alternative to coffee and caffeine, because caffeine can like spike your adrenaline and cortisol and blood sugar and then drop you. And then people end up on this like train of more caffeine and more coffee. And coffee is, very acidic. It's very mineral depleting. It's very dehydrating. And it sure, it can help in some ways, but in other ways it can hinder. So I created this for myself because I had my own little caffeine addiction. And caffeine addiction, by the way, can come from neurotransmitter deficiencies and amino acid deficiencies as well. So you want to make sure that you're eating enough protein. The thing that I love is starting my morning with a high superfood tonic, the metabolic mocha. It's got over 10 different superfoods in it. And all these superfoods are things that are endocrine supporters. So what they do, they're called adaptogens. They help your hormones to balance what you need more or less of. So instead of driving your energy up or relaxing you, it helps you determine based on what it feeds in your mind, your hypothalamic pituitary, thyroid, adrenal axis. Your body then gets to decide what it needs more of. So I start my morning with that, and I have healthy fats in there, healthy, either whether it's coconut, MCT oil, nut milk, nuts, different kinds of nuts. And these are omegas that are very healthy for the outside of your cell. So it reduces inflammation. So it's a balance of healthy proteins, healthy fats, and healthy adaptogens and tonics so that your body gets what it needs. I don't start with a big breakfast. I just start with that. It's already pre-digested. 70% of your energy is used to digest. And so it really can help if you start your morning with like a smoothie, or if you start your morning with like that kind of metabolic mocha, which tastes really good. A lot of my clients are like, are you kidding me? That was so easy to get off caffeine because I feel
like
better.
Dessert for breakfast.
Yeah. And their energy levels are like stable throughout the day.
Mm.
They're not crashing at 2 o'clock, and they're not craving caffeine. And then they have caffeine at 2 o'clock, then they can't fall asleep. And then they are on this spiral of sleep meds and then wake up with caffeine. And so I promise it gets easier to get off of these things. But it's when you feel it and you can see that your beauty, energy, and immunity all comes back at the same time, then it makes it easier to not harm yourself with that. So that's, I start. Yeah.
And I've just read the recipe. I was like, I got to find this. So I just did a quick Google search. So I will include the link to that in the show notes too, because I'm sure everyone's going to want to try that one. And my very last question for you, Diane, is where can people find you? So your main like social media website. And again, I'll link it. But yeah, just to anyone who wants to dive right into your offers, how can they find you?
Yeah. I mean, you can go to my my name is Diane Kazer, and I'm the only one out there, so it's easy to find me. It's Dianekaz, like zebra, ER. And I do a lot of work on podcasts like yours, and you guys can just do some online searches and find things that I've done. A lot of things have been, buried because they don't like the truth of what we're referring to here to come out. It's not profitable for them, but it's practical for you. So you can also find me on all of my social media channels, Diane Kazer, everywhere. That's it. Just Diane Kazer. And then what I want your audience to have is I stacked my module 1 of the Warrior Cleanse, and a lot of the things that you guys may have heard me talk about today, the blockers. I say there's beauty, energy, and immunity blockers, and there's beauty, energy, and immunity builders. I have a list I've created that took me 12 years to accumulate of here are the things that are draining you. And that's that list. And then there's a list of here are the things that can build you. So people go, well, if this is not healthy, what do I do instead? So it's like a this, not that approach. I want to give your audience, that module with those checklists. So you'll put your link below. And if you guys want to, join us for the Parasite Full Moon Challenge, we'll put that below too. But all the resources that you guys have are baby steps for you to encourage yourself to dive into, whether it's yourself or a coach like one of us. Don't do it alone because there's a lot to do, but at least get started on something.
Yeah, we can still like do the first steps, but there's a whole world. There's so many things that we could explore. But I think, I agree. Parasites, toxins, infections, the common roadblocks for people with chronic illness. So thank you so much for all of this information. I've loved this episode. It's been really great just to kind of connect with another practitioner who works in a similar way by the sounds of things. And I'm sure all the listeners have loved this episode as well. So thank you, Diane, for being on the Hormones in Harmony podcast.
Thanks, Vivian, for having me.
I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would love for you to leave me a rating and review on your podcast app, as this helps to support the show and it allows it to reach more people with this valuable information. Come and say hi over on Instagram. I'm at Viva Natural Health. And if you haven't already, check out my website, vivanaturalhealth.co.uk, for tons more free resources and to discover how I could support you further. I currently offer one-on-one consultation packages if you want my top level support, then more affordable group programs and self-paced online courses. So there really is something for everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you back here next week for another episode.